Okay,
Sarah, can you unmute Irma?
we're good to go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and start the meeting. There probably will be people trickling in as we get started here, but for now, let's get going. So welcome to our scoping meeting for the Land Use and Circulation Elements Environmental Impact Report. Thank you very much for attending. And the topic of tonight's meeting is concerning the update to the land use and circulation elements of Buellton's general plan. And we will be preparing an environmental impact report to disclose the potential impacts on the community and environment as a result of the updates to these two elements. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to solicit community feedback on what potential impacts the EIR should focus on. We have not yet begun to prepare the EIR, so this meeting really is a chance to hear from everyone, from you who are participating and from anyone else in the community that's interested in submitting comments. We encourage you to do so, but this is really the opportunity to hear from everyone, to hear from you on what we should focus on in our analysis. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge some of the participants that are in attendance tonight. From the City of Buellton, we have City Council members and Planning Commissioners attending. I notice we have Mayor Holly Sierra just joined us, and Council Member John Sanchez. We also have from the Planning Commission, Chair Hamill, joining us, and we are also expecting Commissioner Art Mercado as well as Marcelo Sarquia to be present. They have registered. I'm scrolling the list here. I'm not yet seeing them join, but I anticipate them to be doing so fairly soon. Also in attendance this evening is Sam Cohen, who represents the San Ynez Band of Chumash Indians. And before I introduce the rest of our project team and start our presentation, I will hand over the mic to Scott Wolf, our city manager, for just a quick procedural comment regarding tonight's meeting. So Sarah, if you could unmute Scott, that would be appreciated.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being in attendance this evening. As Irma noted, this is just a little bit of a procedural matter that I wanted to make sure got discussed here. As Irma mentioned, we do have a number of planning commissioners and city council members in attendance this evening. That attendance is welcomed and their participation is welcomed. However, this is a meeting and it is not a regular meeting of the Planning Commission, nor is it a regular meeting of the City Council. As such, we do have some potential issues with the Brown Act here this evening. So I would like to point out at the beginning of this meeting that this is a public meeting, but it is not intended to be a public forum. It's intended to be a meeting wherein the public can express concerns to our consultant team and have those concerns taken into consideration through the preparation of the EIR. But it's not an opportunity to debate the merits of any particular aspect of the project or to support or oppose any particular outcome of the project this evening. To that end, in order to avoid any Brown Act implications here, I would suggest to our city council members and planning commissioners who are in attendance that we limit in-person comments from planning commissioners and city council members to no more than 2 planning commissioners and 2 city council members this evening. If there are more than that in attendance and you have comments that would like to be made, please put those comments into writing and deliver those to Irma or Andrea or Claire for inclusion in the future discussions on the EIR. We do this not to limit anyone's ability to make comments, but simply to protect the process we're going through here from any potential challenges or concerns regarding Brown Act violations by having too many decision makers at a particular meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have about that, but if we can just abide by that, I think we'll avoid any problems this evening. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Thank you, Scott. With that, I would just like to go over and introduce the team. I'm Irma Tucker. I'm a contract city planner with Buellton, and I'm responsible for coordinating this general plan update for the city. Also here tonight representing the city are, as you just heard, our city manager, Scott Wolf. In addition, we have our planning director, Andrea Kiefer, present, our public works director, Rose Hess, and ever present and providing backup support are Kara Michi and Claire Barcelona from the planning department. Rincon Consultants is leading the environmental impact report effort and co-hosting the meeting this evening. Sarah Howland and Rima Chakra will be coming on shortly to make a presentation and facilitate the public comment portion of the meeting. In addition, we have lead transportation consultant Joel Falter with KOA Corporation present tonight to address any specific transportation questions that may come up. And with that, I will turn the mic over to Sarah. Sarah Howland from Rincon, and she will kick off the formal portion, the presentation portion of tonight's meeting. So, Sarah.
Great, thank you, Irma. We would like to remind everyone that this meeting will be recorded and will then be posted on the City of Buellton's YouTube page in the coming week for anyone who wants to review the content at a later date. Also, if you would like to participate in the discussion while watching live on City TV, please email planning@thecityofbuellton.com. Time is reserved after a brief 15-minute presentation for everyone in attendance to be able to share their comments on the scope of the environmental impact report. So there will be many opportunities to be able to participate. If you have any questions, please send a chat at any time. We are happy to help assist so that everyone's able to participate and able to express environmental impact topics that they think need to be prioritized in this report. Also, during the public comment section, there will be a chance to raise your hand, unmute yourself, and comment directly, including those who've dialed in on the phone. So we've had multiple options available. If you have any questions, please let us know. Next slide. The agenda for tonight's meeting will include a presentation of the overview of the project, which is the land use and circulation element updates. We'll also provide information of how those elements are being updated and the steps involved in preparing an environmental impact report. You may also hear us refer to it as an EIR for short. The intent of this meeting is to receive comments to identify priority environmental impact topics and answer any questions regarding the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, and explain the environmental impact report process. At this meeting, we will not be presenting findings or answering technical questions regarding the land use or circulation elements. There will be opportunities for you as the public to comment on the drafts at a later date during the general plan update process. This is just very focused on the environmental impact report. We'll provide detailed instructions on when and how to submit written comments on the scope of the EIR. And after this presentation, we are reserving time for you to ask questions and provide feedback. We'll make this very clear for timing. And overall, we are hoping this meeting to end at about 7:30 p.m. So if you'll just be patient with us, we'll go through this process of a 15-minute presentation and then public comment period. So now I will send this over to Rima to talk about CEQA.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So the EIR will be prepared consistent with state law, referred to as CEQA for short, and CEQA requires disclosure of potential impacts associated with the project. This allows decision makers to be fully informed on the implications of moving forward with a certain project. CEQA also requires that we identify mitigation measures or project alternatives that would help to reduce or avoid certain impacts. And CEQA also provides opportunities for the community to influence the outcome of the project. The purpose of the scoping period, which is where we are in the process right now, is to collect information from the community on what should be analyzed in the environmental impact report. A scoping period is a 30-day window in which comments are received from agencies and the public. And as Sarah mentioned and Irma mentioned, we want to hear from you on areas of concern that you believe may cause an environmental impact and what should be evaluated and analyzed in the EIR. So the City of Buellton will be updating chapters of the city's general plan and preparing an EIR that evaluates the impact of those updates on the community and the environment. The city's general plan guides population and employment growth in Buellton by establishing policies and allowable land uses. The city adopted a comprehensive update to the general plan back in 2007 that established a vision for growth and development in the city out to 2025. So what we're looking at today is an update that consists of a focused update to the land use elements or chapter of the general plan and a comprehensive update to the circulation element. So the EIR will evaluate the implications of updating these two chapters. The updates to the general plan apply to the entire city of Buellton, which is shown here in white. So the updates to the land use element are shown here on this slide. And the land use element of the general plan designates allowable land uses for all properties within the city, and it establishes the city's urban character and form. Updates to this chapter will be made to make sure that policies and land uses align with changes that have occurred since 2007, including recently built projects, adopted specific plans, and changes in local and statewide rules and laws. No substantive changes are proposed to the land uses at this time. There will be new policies that address social and environmental justice, also consistent with state rules. And there are some state rules addressing housing law that will drive some changes to this chapter. This chapter will also be refined to align with the changes to the circulation element. So the changes to the circulation element will be done to reflect new state rules that look at considering the length of car trips and the steps we need to take to reduce the length of our car trips, or also referenced as vehicle miles traveled. Historically, cities and counties have focused on level of service, which looks at congestion and describes how efficiently and quickly drivers can get through intersections. Now, as part of CEQA, we are shifting focus to vehicle miles traveled per capita rather than LOS, in keeping with state goals that seek to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions, encourage infill development, and improve overall public health through active transportation such as biking and walking. Although LOS will not be part of evaluation of impacts under CEQA, it will continue to be used as a local metric by the city and will be analyzed to see if there's consistency with proposed development projects and land planning actions with adopted LOS standards. Also, as part of this update to the circulation element, the city will be identifying improvements that are necessary to the network of roads, bikes, and pedestrian connections in the city. And there will be a suite of new policies addressing State Route 246 to look at opportunities to slow traffic, create safer pedestrian and bicycle circulation, and enhance transit stops. Like land use, the circulation element will also be updated to reflect the adoption of a number of local and regional plans that are shown here on the slide, so that they'll be made consistent with the update to the general plan. So in addition to these changes to the land use and circulation element, the EIR will include a high-level analysis of potential alternatives to these updates. So one alternative that will be included, which is required by CEQA, is a no action alternative. This would assume no changes will be made to the general plan. However, already adopted local and regional plans will continue to stay in effect. So for example, the Avenue of Flag specific plan and village specific plan would still be in place, influencing the type and scale of new development. However, for EIR purposes, we would assume no changes to the land use element would actually occur. The CEQA guidelines also require a range of feasible alternatives that would have a lesser environmental impact. So we would be looking at a build-out scenario that assumes vacant sites, underutilized sites would be built, as well as a partial build-out of the Avenue Flag specific plan area. And another alternative we're considering of including in the EIR is to assume that State Route 246 would be narrowed, and that the reconfigured right-of-way would accommodate more commercial and residential development along the corridor, and that there would be transit-oriented development, which is typically at a denser scale than what's out there now. So as part of the scoping period, we are looking for any input on the types of alternatives the EIR should evaluate. So what you see on this slide is the list of resources that will be studied in the EIR. This is the full list of environmental topics or resources that are required under CEQA, except we are not planning on evaluating impacts to agricultural resources or impacts to mineral resources. Although, of course, there are ag resources that surround the city, we're not proposing any policies that would impact the continuation of ag operations. So as you prepare your comments on the scope of the EIR, consider this list of resources and identify areas of concern that you may have along these topics. So this slide shows the overall EIR process with the major steps shown in blue and boxes in green on the right side, identifying opportunities for you to comment on the EIR. So right now, as we've mentioned, we're at the very beginning, just issuing notice that an EIR will be prepared. Next, we will be preparing a draft EIR that evaluates the potential impacts and publishing it for you to provide comments. Then a final EIR will be prepared that provides a response to each of the comments that we receive. And the City Council will be taking the final step, which involves certification at a public hearing. The overall project schedule is shown on this slide. And the city began this project in last fall and have held meetings with the Planning Commission, City Council, and the community to look at different policy changes to the land use and circulation elements. So right now we're at the scoping period for the EIR. The draft EIR will be made public in the fall, and meetings with Planning Commission, City Council are anticipated towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, to adopt the final general plan chapters and certify the EIR. All right, so this slide shows how best to comment during this 30-day window. So we are requesting that all comments be provided by April 16th and that the comments be written and submitted to Andrea at the mailing address shown here or the email address. And Sarah will be throwing those into the chat so you have them conveniently. We're asking you that provide information about the areas of concern that you think may cause an environmental impact and what should be evaluated in the EIR. And we have already started to see comments submitted so far. So please keep them coming, and we look forward to receiving them to help shape the approach and scope to the EIR itself. So I think this takes us back to Sarah.
Great, thank you, Rima. I know that was a lot of information. I just sent the chat of the mailing address, but overall, we're basically just wanting to provide this opportunity for the environmental impact topics. So this is your opportunity to be able to participate, being able to provide advice, guidance, in order for us to have the priorities set for the environmental impact report. It can be a very long and detailed process, and we want to make sure that everyone's comments are considered. So I will allow everyone, you're able to send a chat, and I'll be monitoring this chat, or if you would prefer to raise your hand and have me unmute you and you provide your comment out loud, that is also an option. And if you are on the phone only participant, please hit #9 which is basically like the hashtag symbol 9, and it will notify me that you would like to have your hand raised and participate. We also know that if you are watching on the city TV, that you're able to send an email address here to planning@cityofbuellton.com. Claire is currently monitoring that, and she will let me know as we receive any comments. So thank you. We look forward to hearing from you as we open this up. I'm not receiving any chats or any requests to raise hands. Even if someone has a question, would like further clarification, we'd be happy to help. Okay, great. So we have 2 different questions in the chat. So the first one, in addressing greenhouse gas emissions, will you look at potential for encouraging more usage of solar and wind power, etc.?
So we will be evaluating greenhouse gas emissions associated with the changes to the land use and circulation update to understand the associated impacts. I think the comment is speaking to ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as part of new development. And so that isn't necessarily something that would be evaluated in the EIR, but is more of a policy decision that the city could explore.
And I'll say to Irma and Andrea, if you want to comment on something, raise your hand and I'll make sure you're unmuted, just so you know. And then the next question is, to what extent has aesthetics and visuals been prioritized so far?
So we are planning to include an evaluation of aesthetics impacts and visual impacts associated with these changes proposed for the land use and circulation. But as we've been mentioning, we really haven't begun the EIR. So if you have comments or concerns specific to aesthetics, then certainly we look to seeing those comments, and that will help shape our approach to that analysis.
That is all the questions we have so far. I'll keep monitoring the chat. Claire, have we received any emails? Just keep me in the loop.
We have not.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have another question. In looking at circulation elements impact on VMT rather than LOS, can you look at impact on pedestrian mobility and moving from area to area within the city?
Okay, well, that's a good comment. We'll take that we'll take that in and look at how we approach our transportation impact analysis for the EIR, and consider how pedestrian mobility is impacted by the policies that are proposed. So thank you for your comment on that.
There's a question of what is VMT and what is level of service? Great question.
Yes, lots of acronyms. So we're trying to reduce them as much as possible. So vehicle miles traveled evaluates the length of miles per capita, so per person in Buellton, that on average trips are being taken, versus LOS, which stands for level of service, which looks at congestion and the efficiency of vehicles moving through an intersection. So how long you have to wait for those red lights versus the length of your trip, which is VMT. And Joel, certainly jump in if you'd like to clarify that. But the idea here is that CEQA is no longer evaluating impacts from an intersection function, but looking more at the types of projects and what they could do to influence the length of trips that people take as part of that. So if vehicle miles traveled increases or decreases as part of the land use or circulation element update is essentially the change that we're looking to see as part of CEQA. But as we mentioned, the city will maintain LOS standards and evaluation of impact to LOS as part of a project review. It just would not be housed under the CEQA or environmental process as it has done historically.
We have another question. Is resource reuse one of the issues in the long list of things to consider? If not, could it be included? For example, would a certain land use help improve recycling?
So I think I'm trying to better understand this comment. So I think this is speaking to sort of sustainable practices and looking at reuse, such as recycling or land uses that are more sustainable in their approach. And I think this would be also part of sort of the policy direction that the city takes and the policies that are put into place as part of the land use element or the circulation element, and how those land uses fit within a sort of sustainable approach to development. As far as an EIR is concerned, we are looking at greenhouse gas emissions and implications on that angle. So that's how we quantify and assess the impacts of a project. But I don't think it will be to the extent that detail in terms of recycling and that type of thing. So I hope I answered that comment.
I think I'm getting a second chat, so. All right, moving on to the next question, unless there's follow-up on that. Is VMT being looked at within the city limits or the amount of VMT per capita in general, wherever the miles are being driven?
This one I'm definitely going to kick over to Joel to answer on how VMT will be calculated. Just need to unmute you.
The VMT metrics will be analyzed at the city level. So we're looking at VMT for all future land use and growth in the city boundaries itself. And that's based on regional metrics of vehicle miles of travel per capita based on data provided by the SBCAG model. So it's locally based VMT metrics.
Thank you, Joel. Looks like we answered that question. Got a head nod. Great, thank you. We haven't received any new chats and no hands raised, so the awkward pause is for that reason.
Well, there's certainly time to provide written comments. You have until April 16th. So if there are more comments or questions, please provide them to Andrea at the address that Sarah provided. She also has her andrea@cityofbuellton.com email available. But I don't know if there's any emails that have come in or if there's any final questions. Great questions and comments so far.
Question is this presentation available online? So the recording will be available on the City of Buellton YouTube page. Also, the PowerPoint itself will be available. I believe that one of the city staff members can provide the link. Thank you, Kara, for providing the link. So that helps to provide direction for the presentation online.
Okay, well, Irma, Andrea, is there anything else you'd like to say at this time? I'm not seeing more comments or questions or assuming no emails are coming in.
I will just note that in my email, I did receive a comment letter from LAFCO, so we will be including that in the record and in the consideration of the environmental impact to be analyzed.
Hey, well, I guess with that we can wrap up. I'm just adding on to what Andrea mentioned. We have received several other comments in the prior to this meeting, so they will be included as part of the record, and hopefully we'll be receiving more comments. But really appreciate everybody attending tonight and providing your feedback and asking questions. Get us thinking about things maybe we hadn't considered, or getting to know what the community would really like to have analyzed. So again, to those of you who already submitted comments, much appreciated. And for others wishing to comment, or if you have friends and neighbors who may want to provide input, we hope to hear from you and them as well via email or mail by April 16th at the address that was provided. It's basically to the city. Andrea Kiefer, planning director. And if you need to reach the city, we can just go on our city website and the planning department information is provided there. Or call us. If you have any questions, call the planning department. We're always available to help answer questions. For more information on the general plan update itself, please visit the planning department's page at the city's website. We update this page regularly with documents and reports and notices that they become available. And as previously mentioned, a recording of tonight's meeting will be available for public viewing on the city's YouTube channel. And with that, unless there's some other questions that may have popped into people's heads as we've been wrapping up here, please put them in chat. If we see no other questions popping up, I would thank you again for participating this evening and being part of the process in Buellton. It's very valuable that we have community members that are interested in helping to shape Buellton's future. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.